So we found a really egregious example of a company moving the goalposts to make executive compensation a little bit easier. And unfortunately, it happened to be in our own industry, the media industry. It was the New York Times company. Jeff, you wrote about this. You went through the proxy, which came out on a late Friday night.
New York Times knows the news cycle.
They know the news cycle at the New York Times company. And what did you find when you went?
Well, I mean, obviously, what
through
grabbed all the headlines initially was Janet Robinson, the CEO, leaving. She's getting this big $24 million package, and there's all kinds of problems with that.
So that's been out there. It's been like a shock horror. Oh my God, people.
But in a way, they sort of buried the lead, which is that the executives are getting paid on very, very low thresholds, and then that's Janet and Arthur Sulzberger and the other top brass at the New York Times. They're getting paid on a return on invested capital. They're making 100% of their bonus on a 1.6% return on invested capital. Or
okay, so if they make a 1.6, 1.7% return on the capital, the shareholders' money that they invest, they get 100% full whack of their bonus. Correct. Which is a couple million.
And in fact, they were due up to 75% more for achieving the not very much higher 2.5% return on invested capital.
Okay, now let's put that, now treasuries are yielding today 2.3%.
But that's not even, I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is we know that the New York Times borrowed money in 2009, which covered the period for which this long-term incentive plan was under, at 14% from Carlos Slim. Then they got through their troubles, and now they're still borrowing at 6.5%, a little over 6.5%. So they're effectively being rewarded for destroying value.
But I think the other part you unearthed was that the plan rolls every year. It's slightly different every year, but the criteria 2 years ago was the central criteria to get their full bonus was 4 times as high.
Was 7.5, nearly 7.5% of return on capital, which is a sort of a
which is close to the return, which is close to their weighted average cost of capital.
It's tough to make money in the newspaper, news media industry these days. And those guys, the top brass got zipped that year on those criteria. Now, lo and behold, now they're
we didn't get any money, so now we're going to change. We didn't win the game. Let's change the rules.
Make the game easier.
But it's also quite a bit startling coming out of a place like the New York Times, a paper we know well, have worked with, certainly on the editorial side, and has written and criticized these. I think when you referred to David Carr's.
David Carr is their media reporter. He's intrepid. He's out there. He's doing a lot of really good critical work. And he takes on media companies. He's written very critically about the Tribune Company and its executive pay. Very critically about Gannett and its executive pay, wondering how in the world people could, in the media industry, given the state of affairs, could be getting such crazy amounts of money.
But it seems to be happening.
Apparently, the board of the New York Times doesn't read the column.
All right. Well, interesting. Well, we'll hopefully the New York Times will catch on to this story about their own masters. We'll be back with more Breaking Views tomorrow.